గుడ్ మార్నింగ్. డల్గా ఉన్నారు. హౌ వాజ్ ద వీకెండ్? బాగుందని చెప్పడానికే ఆలోచిస్తున్నారు. వన్ షుడ్ లెర్న్ టు బీ హ్యాపీ ఫర్ నో రీజన్. Am I too early to the class? As was said to you in the last class, we will be starting with archaeology and fossil evidences. Archaeology and fossil evidence put together. Before I go through the syllabus and things like that, we'll first have a look at some questions that were asked in 2016. We're not looking for the answers, but just to see how many questions have come from these two components, that is archaeology and fossil evidences. I am looking at page number 8 in this book, if at all you have it with you, otherwise you can listen to me. Yeah. In chapter 1, sir, I am trying to look at questions from fossil evidences and archaeology. There is one question: delineate the salient features of Chalcolithic cultures, for 15 marks. There is another question: Rhodesian man, for 10 marks. So 25 ho gaye udhar. There is this combination: elucidate the biological and cultural factors of human evolution. I am not considering in principle belonging to this topic, so I am keeping that aside. There is this other one, repeated question: explain the skeletal changes due to erect posture and their implications. So overall from chapter 1 there were 5 questions, from fossil evidences and archaeology 3 questions. That was in 2016, paper 1. So that came up to 40 marks. 40 marks, archaeology, fossil evidence in paper 1. Now in paper 2, in the same year, that is page 24, horrible binding, पेज 24, ये तो आपके 6 questions in total from fossil evidence and archaeology. I am reading out. First question, spelling error: significance of Mesolithic findings from Belan Valley. It is typed as Belarus Valley. I am so sorry. Significance of Mesolithic findings from Belan Valley, that was for 10 marks. Neolithic cultures of India, 10 marks. Ethno-archaeological evidences for survival of hunting-gathering traditions in India, 10 marks. Delineate salient features of Narmada man and examine its phylogenetic significance. Discuss how cultural diversity in Indian tribes has enriched the plural tradition. We don't call it archaeology, we'll keep it aside. And give a detailed appraisal of skeletal remains from Chalcolithic cultures of undivided Punjab. 5 question hai: 35, 40, 50, 70 marks. 70 marks from archaeology, fossil evidence, paper 2. 70 idhar ho gaye, 40 udhar ho gaye. 110 marks out of 500. So you can understand. From one segment alone, if you are able to get 100 plus marks, it is not about 1 year. You can go back and see almost every year, ranging from 100, 80 kind of. So even if it is 70 marks, I bet my life on it. Because 70 marks is actually something that can decide your life. So do not neglect this chapter. That is the final conclusion. For your batch especially, what we are trying to do is, we'll identify some of the places which have archaeological significance, and we will try to write separate notes on them. Because a few years ago that trend used to be there. They used to pick up one particular site like Burza Home for a 20 marker kind of. Last year that trend was not there, but I am still sure that this has to come. The last question that I was reading out, the fossil evidences of so and so in the undivided Punjab. Just because an undivided Punjab is there, people were carrying the entire weight of the world on their head. It was not like that. It was a very simple thing. They were talking about one specific cultural zone. So how to understand the question, that is one. Sometimes even if you know the answer, because you don't understand the question, you are failing. That should not happen. Nothing more foolish than that. अच्छा, ये इससे पहले I have brought some beautiful pictures for you. And sir, don't take burden on your heart and soul and mind, please. Enjoy the process that goes on in the class. Read whatever is possible. Don't unnecessarily overstrain yourself. जितना आप enjoy करते हो उतना पढ़ो. जितना ज़्यादा enjoy करते हो उतना पढ़ सकते हो. And ये एक और चीज़ थी. I tried to mail it to you humbly. I don't know whether you call it humbleness or not, but it was becoming so very difficult to manage. Hundreds of mails coming up. अब 40-50 भी हो जाते तो मैं segregate कर लेती. And the more beautiful thing is, people don't write from which batch and what is the number or what is your email ID. So for every answer sheet I'll have to go look at the database. उसमें से आप देखो, उसमें डालो, and kind of a thing. It was becoming so very. I didn't know what I was doing at one point of time. My job was something else and I am ending up doing something else, a clerk's job. So I thought I would, even if it takes time. अच्छा, जिसके भी technical कुछ problems हैं, kindly ask the people there. And still I haven't been given access for evaluation of the scripts. Right now I am having a jolly good time. जब तक वो लोग दे देते. Initial hiccups will be there. We'll have to understand them also. बट कभी कभी थोड़ा सा वो पेशेंस लूज हो जाता है, एंड देन ब्यूटिफुल राइटिंग्स कम आउट ऑफ द पेन. आई विल शो यू सम पिक्चर्स, यू आइडेंटिफाई दैट. नथिंग एंथ्रोपोलॉजिकल एज सच, बट देन देखते हैं. ठीक हो सर? आई एम ऑलवेज वरीड अबाउट दिस ब्लॉक. विच प्लेस? क्या हो गया? Akbar's tomb. I must have mentioned about this in some class. People from that part of the country. In which city it is there? वो किसका है, खबर है क्या है, वो बात की बात है. ना an inspiration for our own Taj Mahal at Agra. वो Radha Swami temple, you have that Radha Swami temple just nearby Radha Swami temple, this one, the first complete marble structure in the Mughal times. Huh? I think many of our friends are from that area. Every weekend you must be driving one of the chariots there. ये तो पता ही है. Nalanda became a very iconic picture last year. After that, Nalanda University issue. अब ये नहीं पता तो you didn't do your NCRT. Super असला. మీ హిస్టారికల్ నాలెడ్జ్కి నా జోహార్లు. చార్మినారా? దేవుడా, చార్మినార్ని కాదు కానీ నిన్ను మ్యూజియంలో పెట్టాలి. ఎవరు చెప్పారు? one of the unfortunate structures that is actually not guarded so well, but you can see the beautiful architecture there. It's as if there are creepers on the building, concrete creepers on the building. अब यहाँ से तो fingers crossed kind of a thing. ये आपको आप बाद में घर पर आराम से देख लेना क्या चीज़ क्या है and why these pictures are given. We will be talking about. ये तो कुछ है ही नहीं but सब कुछ है. This is the reason why we ask the students to actually make it a habit to go for such kind of historical tourism, archaeological tourism. This is my favorite place, Lothal. Some of you must be from that area, Pushpagiri. Unfortunately, that complete picture I didn't give. This one, Suketi, the only fossil park of India. अब ये क्या हो गया? Today we are going to see this again in our class. Thank you. Very, very popular site. Popular mouth of the cave, I should say. Your NCERT has, and suppose you have done your history in your +1, +2, and then your graduation. Every time the same picture comes. Some of you from that area. Thank you. Many such baulis are there in that part of the world. वही आपके पहेली वाले चीज है ना. ये है चार, not the previous one. I thought Charminar doesn't require any kind of introduction, but then I think you should. Maybe we will have an excursion to Charminar somewhere during your course. My God, I know you would say that. If you are not from Hyderabad, at least one visit to Golconda is mandatory for you to see how dilapidated the structure is. One clue of Golconda is you have that Baramati. As the structure goes, as the fort ends in a small room at the top. The lady used to stay there and then she used to come for. I can see Golconda from my house actually, though I can't see the dance. This is another very marvelous thing. Champagnes. So we will be coming across these during our course. Most of our writings, most of our study will be in lithic ages, but where from? Madurai. The moment you see the structure, you should be able to understand that this is south of Vindhyas. The more south you go, the more intricate the pictures will be, the architecture will be. ये तो खैर. A couple of others are there. This was that museum in Suketi Park. I tried to take from your NCERT only. Super slow. There cannot be any superior structure than this. The entire architecture of India is on one side, and this is the one that is matchless. So even if you forget the other things, this you should not. But this was incredible. The moment I have shown other things, you were blinking. But this one, today you are going to have a very beautiful day. I wanted to start my week on a very happy note so that people can leave the class laughing. In the middle of anthropological thought with so many serious discourses, people forgot to laugh. So I thought, certain things I have written in yellow. These are the ones that are commonly there in paper 1 and 2. Whenever you feel bored with archaeology, remember the marks we have shown. 100, 110 marks. You will have sleepless nights. So in today's class, we are trying to introduce to you archaeological anthropology. We are majorly going to talk about the scope of this subject, and we will try to look at one small topic. Though a rarity to be asked in the exam, I want you to be familiar with the terminology. So geological time is something that we are going to see. Though anthropology is rarely bothered about the time before the Homo had actually emerged, nevertheless, for your own comfort, that you know more than what you should know, kind of a thing, for that satisfaction, we'll show certain things. And I'll tell you how we are going to deal with them. As far as dating is concerned, I said to you that I'll be mailing. Today you'll be getting a mail of that topic. A brief idea you will be given in today's class what has to be studied. Once you study, then we will have a discussion. Secondly, whenever all these lithic ages are discussed, we would do paper 1 and 2 parallelly. In paper 1, whatever, for example, I am doing Paleolithic, I will give a general picture of Paleolithic of the world. Then we will come to India, have a comparison. Sir, a question based on comparison is something that I am looking for in the future. Either they have given in general Paleolithic or general lithic ages, or no general lithic ages of India. There was only one that appeared in comparison, that was Mesolithic, comparison of European Mesolithic with Indian Mesolithic. That was the only question that was asked. Other things we are still waiting. But here you will have to understand something. Because the same topics are there in paper 1 and 2, answer is not the same in both the papers. Sometimes the question that appears in the morning, the same thing appears in the evening also. ఇదేదో బాగుంది కదా ఒక బాణానికి రెండు పిట్టలు అన్నట్టు అలా కాదు. These are two different answers. Suppose Paleolithic appears in paper 1, it is a different answer from Paleolithic in paper 2. Examples are different, thinkers are different, places are different, features are also different. There may be only a few common features that you will find. India has its own speciality. So understand that you have your own speciality in being weak in archaeology. That's all. And there are a few things there. As we go further, for example, from copper bronze age onwards, we'll be focusing mostly on India alone. Sir, when I was saying that in paper 1, if a question is asked, it is about the world, paper 2, it is India. Teasingly, sometimes the examiner asks India in paper 1, clearly mentions it. Iron Age characteristics of India. Then you can't say that no, you are supposed to give in the evening. I will not write now. I still haven't revised. I kept it for the afternoon revision. Many times it happens. Examiner in UPSC is a thoroughly leg pulling fellow. So we will try to see in what different ways he can pull you. We will be preparing. I am very thankful for one. I was randomly looking at a couple of answer scripts that were mailed, comparing with the other people who had been, I can call them veterans in anthropology, writing the exam for a long period. And then they are also writing tests along with you. Accidentally, it so happened that they were also writing certain things about thought when you were writing this particular test. I was more than happy to see your scripts when compared to theirs. I thought that, okay, you are moving in the right direction. So be confident. Whatever you feel like, dil khol ke likho. Don't hesitate to write, because if you hesitate here in the exam, it is going to be very difficult. See to it that one person was messaging me that 300 words I was able, 250 or something I was not able to write. I knew I could understand, but I was not able to write. So if that is the case, you will have to do several things to increase your content. Maybe somewhere what we must have discussed when we were not formally making a dictation. That's the reason why I told you sometimes dictations are only half of what the actual answer is. So if that is the case, if you understand and expanding the content is a problem, generally that is not the case in my classes. Students would feel that itna kuch hai, itna kam kaise likhein. Generally that is the problem I should get. जब ये लड़का मुझे इस तरह से पूछ रहा है, तो then I was looking at my own self कि क्या हो रहा है. But that is a rarity actually. So from here onwards we will be mostly concentrating on Indian characteristics alone. This is anyway not for you to purchase. I will tell you what to purchase. Anthropology by Ember you have already purchased. You would be reading only a few things that I will tell you what to read from that book. General Anthropology Hasnain is the one that you will purchase, and you will study a few things from there. So I had earlier asked you to purchase, one was Tribal India Hasnain, then thought में कोई एक book लेना था आपको, Makhanza or whatever. Ember, that was one. That's all I told you, है ना? And then this is the fourth one, General Anthropology by Hasnain. But you should know the books, list of books, what we generally use for the classes, so that when your friend asks, you can say that you have studied all that for archaeology. If somebody is really enterprising, पहला तो आपको जनरल एंथ्रोपोलॉजी हसनैन करना है. There are certain topics there. Can I talk? There are certain topics such as tool typologies and technologies. That is one chapter. He has very lucidly given that particular chapter, picking up various tool manufacturing techniques right from the earliest times to the Iron Age, etc. So there is a possibility that examiner might pick up one particular technique of tool manufacturing that can be asked as a small question. This book helps. And I am also eagerly waiting for questions such as trace the evolution of tool typologies and technologies from lower Paleolithic to such and such age. So you should be able to identify the trends, how tools were manufactured and what kind of tools were there, what kind of materials were there. These are the questions that are still to be asked, and General Anthropology Hasnain will help you in that. He also has given several pictures. You can do freehand drawing of many of them. Can I go? So we are right now moving to archaeological anthropology. Can you tell me so far, from among the thinkers, who were the people associated with archaeology? Bowers was there and Gordon Childe. So full-fledged archaeology association you see in them. Some kind of architectural studies were there by Egyptologists. So Smith was there, who was doing the archaeological studies, partly, but these are the two people. Just read this. You're not writing any, but it's up to you if you want to. Archaeology is not a source of illustrations for written texts. but an independent source of historical information with no less value and importance, sometimes more important than the written sources. It gives us an opportunity to fill the gaps in history. So you can go back and do today the very first chapter in your NCERT, Ancient India, Sources of Indian History. That's the first chapter that you must have spent a lot of time on that chapter. So many of the archaeological evidences we use in the prehistoric times. Archaeological anthropology gives a new identity, an expanded identity to anthropology, because we study not simply historical sources, prehistorical sources also. That's how, when questions like relations with other disciplines are asked, history and anthropology, history starts with only written records, whereas anthropology has prehistoric studies also. It's not simply prehistoric, pre-human studies also. So it's like, small children when they try to talk great about their own selves. मेरे पास इतना बड़ा कार है, मेरे पास उससे भी बड़ा कार है, kind of a thing. मेरे पास 2 मम्मी है, मेरे पास 4 मम्मी है, kind of a thing. So it's something like that. Read it to yourself. Sometimes it is much more important than the written sources. And I love this discipline because it gives complete independence, freedom to the archaeologist to narrate his own story from his heart. You are free to build stories from the remains there. But before I take you to various branches, etc., can I go?
Anthropologists and archaeologists are explorers of human culture. Their work is closely connected. Both careers focus on the way people live together. Anthropologists study the origin of humans and their physical, social, and cultural development. They are concerned with how the past relates to the present. They also conduct research by going to locations to ask questions and make observations. An archaeologist is a kind of anthropologist. Archaeologists study past societies through their material remains. They recover and examine material evidence, such as ruins, tools, and pottery remaining from past human cultures. With this evidence, they build an understanding of the history, customs, and living habits of earlier civilizations. Archaeologists often travel to sites called digs, where they search for remnants of societies. Together, they create a picture of a society. We often think of anthropology and archaeology in terms of the past, unearthing the secrets of ancient civilizations. But these scientists also examine living societies in faraway Amazon jungles or in a neighborhood next door. They might study gender differences, physical attributes, music, or religion. Their field is the wide array of human social experience. Usually their work is sponsored by a museum, university, or foundation, but they might also be independent filmmakers or authors. Most anthropologists and archaeologists prepare for their careers with a 4-year college program followed by extensive graduate-level study. For many professional positions, especially with universities, a PhD is required. These are academic fields that combine curiosity and attention to detail with a taste for adventure.
A day in the life, anthropologist. Don't miss them, sir, because they give you the ready-made answer. It's that you play the video, you write down the statements that would make a 100-word answer for you. A day in the life, anthropologist. See, there could be many such videos, but what I find the most lucid I try to share with you. We'll see certain other definitions. Don't worry about the spelling. I think by now you have got confused. Some of you must have got confused. What should be the spelling of archaeology? You can use AE or you can simply say archaeology, study of human culture through a recovery, documentation, analysis of material remains, including architecture, artifacts, biofacts, human remains, landscapes. Our focus in the first couple of classes will be on vocabulary. In the video you have come across this word, digs. Digs or ruins, those are the places that are actually dug by these archaeologists. You must enjoy those topics which your competitors are afraid of. और जब आप लिखते हो तो थोड़ा सा प्यार से लिख लेना. I mean, few scripts I was seeing थोड़ा झटका दिखा उसमें. I mean, throwing words at me. तुम्हारी किस्मत है तुम पढ़ लो, kind of a thing. And couple of scripts have got a very huge slant. ये थोड़ा डेंजरस लगता है. लाइन ऐसा होना चाहिए. यहाँ तक फिर भी ठीक है ना. 45 degrees angle. So if that is the problem, you try to practice in the ruled books for some time. And I think for one script I have mentioned, practice in the 4 rule book or 2 rule book, the handwriting. It's very much important. Sometimes you feel that you had a good handwriting, anthro classes ke baad, people are feeling happy, yes. If that is the problem you are finding, for 4 or 5 days or a week you try practicing in the double rule book or 4 rule book, just to bring back the identity of those letters. Many times that's the problem. Our R's and S and U and V, they look alike. Our F and B are one and the same. G you can't make out. And many times we find it difficult to read our own handwriting. It's like a doctor's handwriting who can be deciphered only by the medical shop fellow. Just imagine a wife of a doctor has received a love letter from him. She can't read anything. She finally has to go to the medical shop. That should not happen. If kind of architecture is understood, artifacts are the tools actually, those materials that must have been used as tools. Biofacts is other than human, there can be any other evidences. Like we will see several pictures in the upcoming classes. When the individual is buried, he may not be buried all alone. All his pets also would be buried along with him, so that they can guard him, they can take care of him after his death. Or any other such kind of remains. They indicate the ecological situation. And then it is not simply this. We will come back on that a little while later. So basically, that is anthropology, that is archaeology, long time prehistoric, historic studies that would give additional information to study cultural evolution. It is the only discipline which possesses the method, the collection, interpretation of information about the pre-written human past. Whatever we have said, I tried to write there. So basically, to boast of that this discipline is useful. It has so many credentials. Of course, from tomorrow we would be starting to write dictation also on these topics, scope of archaeological anthropology, things like that. This discipline lives on importance of history. So it helps us in tracing our glorious past. Somehow past and future, both of them are curious things for the man. It's not simply past but future also. That's the reason why you have palm reading. Though you otherwise claim that you don't believe in all that, the moment you see such person passing by, you would stop and ask the parrot to say your future. So such tensions actually can be handled if you believe in Karma Sutra. So basically, this is a topic that deals with pre-written things. See, many times material works as a symbol. Many times material works as a symbol to understand the culture. A small thing like a rangoli that is used in the Indian homes, it indicates the occasion, it indicates the time. Of course, gone are the days when we used to make the daily rangolis in the morning. And now you neither have interest nor taste nor time. Some of the people who still call themselves traditional, they try to paint the rangoli in front of the apartments. And that's it. I remember one of the short documentaries that we made for BBC long time back, that was on rangoli, from top to bottom, meaning from Kashmir to southern tip, what are the different kinds of rangolis people make. Sometimes, flowers alone are used, sometimes food grains are used, sometimes certain other things. But this is a small thing, but then you can be able to identify the occasion based on what is actually. Those are some of the words that I wanted you to know. Artifact, removed from the site, taken to the laboratory, things such as tools. The one example I wrote there, it may be arrowheads, it may be axes, or it may be anything. So basically artifacts are tools that are dug from the archaeological sites. There are two other words there, features. Feature is a full-time site. We are going to see some such sites today. One particular site, if it is said that people must have lived there, manufactured the tools, they must have cooked food, and everything is, you are able to identify from that particular site, we call it a feature. You have eco-facts. So other than the basic human things, they must have been used by man or must have been existing there. This argument still exists whether it was the bone that was first used by man as a tool or it was the stone. Don't forget the terms, sir. Artifact is the tools that he must have used. Features are the full-blown sites there where a lot of information you can get about their lifestyle. Eco-facts, they talk about the materials that must have been used or may not have been used by the human for his tools, or they might simply be existing along with that man of that time. Anybody from the northeast? Bengal, Guwahati. We will be using some material from there. I'll also be naming the universities or the organizations from where particular material is used. If at all I am using illegally, I'll tell you that this is an illegal information. Generally, videographing in the museums is forbidden. For the students' sake, we try to trespass sometimes, but that has to be kept to your own selves. Can I go? We are talking about archaeological anthropology. Sometimes what happens is, see, when so much of knowledge is there for the field workers that looking at a particular artifact, you will be able to say that, okay, this must have been used in such and such time period. Maybe the purpose was this. Sometimes you know the belonging of this tool, meaning that it belongs to so much that particular time, but you don't know the utility. Occasionally what happens is, you get a doubt whether it is a tool or not. It may be an accidental tool, meaning that he must not have manufactured it, but he must have used it. Or maybe he was manufacturing something else, he got this also. I was preparing for UPSC, I got group 1 also, kind of a thing. Major tool was this. These are the accidental things. So there are certain words there. Eoliths. So from now, lith would become a common word for us. Lithic is stone. Lith, something made up of stone. Eolith is an object that must not have been an intentional tool. It's not an intentionally manufactured tool. Not an intentional tool. They are a big challenge. It's not an intentional tool. So it's a big task for the archaeologist to establish whether it is a tool in the first place. Suppose tools, if you think that they are, you can confirm that they are intentionally manufactured ones, we call them Clactonian tools. Clactonian is to indicate that they are intentionally manufactured. Intentionally manufactured. So in the earliest times, if at all you could recall what you must have studied in history, Paleolithic, etc. Doesn't matter if you haven't studied. Most often we start with Harappa only. Most often we start with Harappa and we end in Harappa only. Because after every few days we keep aside the book. Next time suddenly we remember that we will have to do history. So पहले से फिर शुरू करोगे. And by the time you finish Harappa, you have something else to do. So all of us are very strong in Harappan civilization. That's there in your syllabus. Copper Bronze Age, otherwise called Indus Valley culture in Indian context. But we will do differently there, in the sense that most often we feel that Indus Valley we have done extensively. Everything, every site and every detail there, what is found where and who was involved. So we look for a question like archaeological studies related to, anthropological studies related to Indus Valley culture. When I say anthropological studies, it may be linguistic studies, it may be physical anthropological studies, or it may be several others. There are certain anthropological projects that are being executed in different sites of Indus Valley. So we will be focusing on those topics instead of talking about what was there at Lothal, what was there at Kalibangan, etc. That You anyway have done that. We would be circulating as a ready reference material. Our focus will be on what is anthropologists doing in the archaeological sites of IVC. The utility may be there, but then here the focus is on whether they were manufactured intentionally or not. I'll tell you this way. The first period, that is lower Paleolithic time, generally we find that crude tools were there, very crude hand axes or cleavers, etc. Suppose this is the tool that you have found there. We call it a hand axe. In order to manufacture this was the objective. The tool the tool on which we are focusing, we call it core tool. Core is nothing but that tool that we intend to manufacture. But then while we are doing that, we are chipping off a lot of material. Small stone pieces are actually generated from that. Those small pieces in the later time, by the time you come to Middle Paleolithic, we start calling them flakes. What happens is, in the Middle Paleolithic, man was intentionally manufacturing flakes. So flakes in the Middle Paleolithic are Clactonian flakes. Flakes in the Lower Paleolithic are Eolithic flakes. Did I? Yeah. Ecofact.
Does it mean the dormant seed or half-burned seed?
It may be anything. It indicates that, you see, there may be natural availability of them. Or is it that man was intentionally cultivating that particular seed? Or was he using such kind of? So if you could see, for example, in Indus sites itself, there were certain sites where there is an evidence of burnt husk, rice husk was there. Or at some places we found some kind of food grains. He may not, the evidence of manufacturing, producing may not be there, but then utility may be there. It confirms that.
But what about decomposition of the normal, naturally occurring?
See, we will be coming to certain topics here called fossilization. That we will do after cultural evolution. That is, after I finish all those lithic and metal ages, we will come to this topic called fossilization. There we are going to see various processes through which fossilization occurs. Not every buried thing would get fossilized. Conditions should be conducive so that what was existing there suddenly gets preserved. So, and that is also our basic heartburn. When it comes to India, we don't have many fossils. We say that our conditions were not favorable for fossilization, but it is not that we were not having the past of Homo sapiens. So we will be doing with this kind of things. There are a couple of divisions there. Historic archaeologists, prehistoric archaeologists, the fight always goes on who is superior. Historic fellows reconstructing people who used writing. Prehistoric fellows recording cultures before. So cheppinde malli cheppudam adi. I have scheduled about 15 days for the whole thing. I mean, fossils and archaeology. 15 days and 100 marks, I think it's a sensible one. So do not, so you try to gauge the importance based on the number of days that we are giving to each topic. The more significant ones will have to spend a lot of time. Like with your wife, you spend more time than with your mother, kind of a thing. So basically, here we are trying to see how tool usage had evolved, how very crude tools have taken the form of sophisticated ones, unintentional ones being substituted by intentional tools, diversification of material. Maybe first it was stone alone, then he started to use things like bone or ivory or horn, kind of a thing. Maybe sometimes wood was also used in some kind of manufacturing of the tool or supporting the tool. The problem is, if they are lithic tools, preservation is easy. If they are non-lithic, preservation is difficult. So bone, horn and wood, if you are able to get those evidences also along with the lithic evidence, then you have a very strong base. That is the reason why Europe has huge archaeological history, because it has so many sites that got preserved. I'll give you some basic information, then we will have to watch something much more important. This is the basic division, sir. We are interested in archaeology only. In archaeology, right now our focus is on prehistoric archaeology. That's what we call Stone Age. Then you have Bronze, Early Iron Age. This is a basic division, nothing so difficult, nothing so important. Proto is midway through. You don't know where to put it. Via media. Very short period. Generally, more evolved Iron Age is placed there. That is a time of very rudimentary writing, established cities, established warfare. Remember, every country has got its own record of history, time periods. As we have seen in our previous class, emergence of cities in different parts of the world that varied from about 4000 BC to 1000 AD. I read out Stone Age. In Stone Age, there are four parts there. Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, and Chalcolithic. Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, and Chalcolithic. In Paleolithic, you have three more phases: lower, middle, and upper Paleolithic. Any particular questions in the test you needed an explanation? I think most of them were discussed. Any particular questions you needed explanation? How many of you have not taken the test papers? All of you have taken? All of you have taken? Those of you who have not taken, kindly take them down. I don't know whether you have the hard copies or soft copy, whatever you take. Have a look at them. And if at all you haven't attempted the test, back home you try to write. Any question that needed issue? Any one question that needed? All of them were discussed. If that. So why I'm asking is, One of these days we will try picking up certain questions and we will have a discussion on questions for about an hour or so. If at all you are finding it difficult to attempt any particular questions there. Tell me which came first. Was it Indus civilization or Chalcolithic cultures? Why? In India it is Indus first. In India, Indus civilization, so civilization had come first and followed by, so it's something like this. So you are moving from lower lithic ages to higher ones. You have Neolithic, and then you have Bronze Age cultures. After that you see that, so it's somehow happening like this. After some part you see the coexistence of Chalcolithic cultures along with the Bronze Age cultures. So there is one part of, later part of Bronze Age cultures where you see that there is a combination, coexistence of Chalcolithic and Bronze Age cultures. So looking at this evidence, people conclude that maybe Metal Age had come first, after Chalcolithic Age had come, then it disappears, Chalcolithic goes forth and it meets into the Iron Age. Now here there are two problems. One is where from suddenly it is coming. There is one flow that we see in the cultural evolution. So certain archaeologists, what they say is, maybe we still don't have the evidence of Chalcolithic sites at the time when Bronze Age cultures must have evolved, or maybe before the Bronze Age had evolved we might be having, but until we get the evidence it is difficult to say. Right now, based on the evidence, it is said that after Neolithic we have the Bronze Age cultures, and after some time you see the coexistence of these two, because we know that Indus Valley cultures, these are known for the big cities, marvelous, etc., etc. There are granaries and people living in big bunches there. When so much of such huge granaries are there should be somebody producing those granaries. So certain people say that these are the Chalcolithic people who are manufacturing food grains for the Bronze Age cultures. So that coexistence was there. So right from the beginning they must have been coexisting. Difficult to say because there is a lack of evidence. And after which, this is also one big puzzle that we have. What must have happened to the Bronze Age people? Several people have written different stories. Disappearance of Harappan civilization, that was one question in history and even in anthropology. Disappearance of, and once it disappears, Chalcolithic continues and it finally gets merged into Iron Age. Those stories we will see later. This, I think, I can mention as the sub-branches of archaeological anthropology, or so when we are going to write a full-fledged answer on them, don't mind some typing problem there. Classical archaeology, demographic archaeology, maritime archaeology, underwater archaeology. Sir, mark this as an important question, underwater archaeology for 10 marks. Underwater archaeology for 10 marks. You have on this side prehistoric, cultural resource studies, cognitive archaeology. I repeat, sir, for the people from the back. Classical archaeology, demographic archaeology, maritime archaeology, underwater archaeology, cognitive archaeology, culture, resource studies, prehistoric archaeology. Then you have down there Ethnoarchaeology, one of a very beautiful questions in your syllabus, and industrial archaeology. మిగతా వాళ్ళంతా రాసేసుకున్నారు, మీరు ఇంకా సున్నాలు చూడుతున్నారు. Don't bother what they say, we'll write them down later in tomorrow's class about each of them. With the content you must have got a hint that archaeology here got diversified. Some people emerged who call themselves cognitive archaeologists. With the material evidences they are trying to write the thought process of the man earlier in time. Then of course there are people who are called ethnoarchaeologists. These are nothing but comparative archaeologists. They are comparing archaeology of the previous times, archaeology in the current times. If you look at the website of Archaeological Society of India, Archaeological Survey of India, you find something related to underwater archaeology. This is an emerging discipline. We are trying to do a lot of things underwater, whether it is preservation or retrieving or whatever. See, underwater archaeology is more to do with the location of your nation. Sometimes, certain islands that are located in the middle of the oceans, etc., if at all such a study is conducted on them, they would be talking about the formation of those islands and then trying to understand the layers below. See, digging the earth and studying those layers is relatively much easier than that. There the archaeologist would go under the water, he would try to get samples from different layers of the islands and tries to study the emergence, how things must have happened. Or certain countries are there, like Canada, they have an expertise in studying the shipwrecks. Any ships that were drowned, they try to do massive studies on them. Or when it comes to India, our archaeologists, our underwater archaeologists are trying to study the resource base along the coastline. So based on your location and your interest, the definition also sometimes varies. But right now our focus will be on what were the tools used by them, etc. Let me take you to the geological time. There are certain terms that you will have to know. My focus here was, one, to give you the terms, secondly, define the time period. Time is something that is difficult to understand. Of course, for a long time we have also been thinking in India to have those two timelines, time zones. Maybe this time it may be realized with the very determined Prime Minister out there, and others are still thinking he would have done those things, so maybe. But otherwise time is something that is very difficult to explain. If somebody says define time, define time. We are not talking about that one pendulum clock in London, etc., based on which a second is actually measured, kind of a thing. So when a physics as a discipline was introduced to you, when distance and time you were exposed to those things for the first time, maybe that was the definition that was given. But I don't know what time is. The puzzle is we are actually living in the illusion and we are fighting the illusion. We are trying to plan for something that is actually called an illusion. If you say that it's an illusion, is it that it is not a reality? Is it that it is not existing? I don't know. That is geological time scale. In one of these days, we are going to define what day is, what an hour is, not in terms of number of minutes or seconds, in some other sense. Geological time scale is the chronological dating of the geological strata. Stratification is the first one that we'll start with. Stratigraphy, geologists, etc., etc. Basically, geological time scale is the measure, a picture of Earth's history. All those lines apart, simply put, geological time scale is a measure, is a picture of evolution of Earth. I am making you familiar with these terms because sometimes, as you know, examiner may be in a real teasing mood. 1 year a question had appeared, geological time scale. I don't want to be cursed by the students at that time. Then I will have to think about my time. So you can see here time can be used in different senses. If your grandfather says in our times, so that's a different kind of time. So geological time scale is tracing, tracking, picturizing Earth's history. There are a few words. Can I go, sir, ma'am? Somebody who must have studied geology in your school, college. If at all you were a civil engineer, I am sure you must have studied geology. You would have a better idea of usage of them. These are the terms I want you to know. Of course, in the common writings in archaeological anthropology, we mostly use the word era, period and epoch. That's a rarity to occur. Eon is the biggest time that can be divided into different eras. Each era is divided into different periods. Each period has several epochs. That is the first basic classification. I am not giving very technical terms there. Geological time is divided into those. Actually, there can be several eons also. Eon is the biggest measure of time. It's like degree ఎన్ని సంవత్సరాలు చేసావంటే అదొక పెద్ద ఇయాన్ అన్నమాట. Our ACs are working, not working? But you people are so patient, you don't say anything. గోలగోలు చేయాలి కదా. Terms are okay? Eons, era, period and epoch. So some people who must have been studying for UPSC for several eons from now. Something like that. Usage of words in the sentences would make you more familiar with them. I am here trying to give you some basic, very basic understanding. Eon, the largest division of time that may be hundreds to thousands of millions of years. So we will start with those times. I mean, not hundreds of millions, but of course in anthropological studies will start with some 1, 2, 3 millions of years. Maximum will go up to is 5 million years. Million meaning? How many zeros are there in a million? 9. 9 or 6? ఎన్నైతే మనకెందుకు. So we will have to see when man had appeared. Basically our focus is on him. And immediate ancestors of man, when they must have appeared. So in the whole Earth's history, we might be more focusedly looking at about 1.8 or 1.5 million years only. But then many books of archaeological anthropology, they try to give all this stuff. So it is like a tradition that I am introducing them to you. Those are two major eons that we would come into contact during our discussions. Precambrian is a big time, but maybe we'll leave this for a while, just leave this for a while. First you take the small definitions, then I'll go to a chart and come back here. Era is a smaller one, tens to hundreds of millions of years. So thousands of millions of years are divided into hundreds of millions of years. And then I'm skipping this thing. Periods, the next division. Division of geographic time that spans to more than 100 million years. So the time is becoming shorter. After periods, you have epochs. Mostly the three terms that occur to us: eras, periods, and epochs. Epoch is a further division in the periods. These are the terms that mostly occur in our discussions. Eras are divided into those, and humans are in this. Humans have emerged in this particular era, which we call Cenozoic. Within Cenozoic, there are two periods, Tertiary and Quaternary. We are the ones that are related to Quaternary. When it comes to Homo sapiens, he appeared in that particular epoch. So the biggest time humans are associated with is Cenozoic. I'll show you the chart also, but right now we are trying to look at the meaning of each of those words. Eon is thousands of millions of years ago, and era is now thousands to hundreds. Period, when it comes to period, it is about 100 million years ago, and epoch is a further division therein. The one with which humans are associated is the Quaternary period. Within Quaternary, we have the last epoch called Holocene epoch. Most of our human cultural biological evolution story remains in Holocene epoch, our discussions in the subject. If you look at 1.6, 1.5 rather, there is this term used called pre-Pleistocene fossils. Pre-Pleistocene fossils. Did you notice, sir? Pre-Pleistocene fossils. Look at 1.5 and 1.6. Pre-Pleistocene fossils. You can see 1.6 phylogenetic status, characteristics of and geographical distribution. Somebody called Plio-Pleistocene hominids. These are nothing but the pre-Pleistocene fossils, meaning that is a combination 1.6a, that is paper 1, 1.6a, Plio-Pleistocene fossils, meaning that it is that hominid that must have existed in the Pliocene period and Pleistocene period. Did you notice? Did you get it? In 1.6, paper 1, chapter 1.6. I don't know, something must have been wrong. Maybe once you get your syllabus books, I don't know, some of you must have got. If you have got the intlo petti gudlu pettikunda, you just carry it to the class so that you can keep looking into this document. And after a few classes, you will be carrying the other books also, like how the school books you carry to the school. Initially, you will have that fancy of coming with one notebook and pen occasionally. And slowly, number of books also increase, and then formally you will purchase a bag, and then you will purchase a compass box also, where you are putting all your pens, pencils, kind of a thing. That is when you start studying. Till then, actually I wanted to show this, but because it is too very small, first I'll show something in this, and then I'll show a better picture. I love this one, so I'm showing. These are the eons, sir. We are looking at one Precambrian times to Cenozoic, as we have seen that list. Cenozoic era is the one where we belong. This is Quaternary period. Here is the Holocene epoch, not 0.1 million years ago, and Pleistocene, that was 1.8 million years ago. We are more concerned with this man, that is earliest man. If at all we are going a little back in time, your syllabus calls it Plio and Pleistocene fossil man. So we are talking about this particular phase where the people earlier to Homo sapiens must have originated. These are all those times. I will be sharing this document with you so that you will have the pleasure of seeing this. Not that you would be replicating this in the exam, but in order to just show maybe what is the sequence of appearance of life on the earth. First must be the fish, and then plants, then amphibians, then reptiles, then birds, etc., etc. Many of you who have done life sciences must have done this chart at that time, but for the rest of you, it is something like, wow. So many names are there, don't worry about the names. We are only worried about these. I think I am trying to answer those people who are saying that there are too many new terms that we are going to. Don't worry. Quaternary, Tertiary, Holocene, Pleistocene, Pliocene. You remember that whatever times are there associated with humans, we are worried about them. There is a better, slightly colorful one, but I don't really like certain usages in this. The way he tried to arrange, I didn't like it. So in time periods, there is small difference. There we were talking about 1.8 million years ago. Here he calls it 1.6. See, it doesn't matter. 0.2 million years doesn't matter when you're talking about thousands and hundreds of millions. Satukot lingalla bold lingam annattu. It doesn't matter. Sir, one other topic I will be circulating to you, though it is not formally mentioned in your syllabus, that is interglacial periods. I mean, those of you who must have done geography have done this. The glaciation periods and what happened during those glaciation periods. So those 3-4 major phases I would want to share with you so that you would just keep that in mind, just in case, if not here, elsewhere, if a question comes up. So basically that's what earliest life 3,500 million years ago, and at one point of time several other life forms emerged, vertebrates, invertebrates, and then you come to the disappearance of those massive individuals called dinosaurs, and then humans. We are worried about the humans. Within the human evolution story, two things we are doing in anthropology. One is biological evolution, the other is cultural evolution. Right now our focus is on cultural evolution. Soon after this we will be starting with biological evolution. So basically it is this period we are interested in, quaternary period. So I stick to this time period, 1.8 million, as if it's that everybody would have their own. It's not that way. Most of the sources that I am following have 1.8 million years ago. So full-fledged Homo sapiens in all conformity originated 12,000 years ago. See how short our life is. 12,000 years ago. Pliocene and Holocene epochs. Today's newspaper is there? Newspaper? నలిపేశారు చదివి Yeah, I was asking you to read this particular thing, Metropolis, so that you can see the anthropological angle there. 2016 survey, Metropolis. I love this thing. What is being human? Most of the answers there are related to the physiology of the individual. You are the only fellow who is a biped, upright, very confident, erect posture. These are the choicest words, are very confident erect posture. Even a chimpanzee can walk on the 2 feet, but it is not so very confident. You will be focusing on your walking style when you go to the interview preparation. You can't do much with them. అదేదో అంటారు కడుపులో లేనిది కావాలించుకుంటే ఏమొస్తుందని. Basically it has to be there in your much expanded brain, well-defined sexual dimorphism, so you can easily make out the male and female. Extended childhood, our childhood never ends. Very long childhood. On top of it, parents say, how much ever elder you become, you are still our children. Every time, ade bommarillu father. Can't really help it. Every time holding your hand at every step, not allowing you to fall down. Falling and failing is very important to learn things. You have a very formal, structured language. Language is different from speech. Speech is any sound that you make. That may also be for communication. So a monkey has a speech, it has no language. But we don't know. We don't know, because if at all they are doing their own linguistic studies and archaeological studies and then things like that, they also must be having their own language. But when we say language, it is a very structured one. There are rules, there is a grammar. They may be written, they may not be written. See, language may be a written form, it may not be a written one. Even if it is in an unwritten form, it would follow all those rules of language. Then you have a society, meaning that you have people who follow certain rules, there is a particular structure there, and above anything else, we are the only people who have culture. A question appears in the exam: is culture unique to humans? Is culture unique to humans? So if at all culture is seen as something like certain rules or certain behavior patterns or usage of material, usage of tools, etc., for an archaeologist, culture is synonymous with material culture. We will be seeing certain very beautiful pictures of chimpanzees and other kinds of apes who truly have parts of culture. One of the apes has this very fanciful thing. It makes its bed every night. It makes its bed every night. Now with the very selective leaves, very tender leaves. Which one? Gorilla. Gorilla makes its own bed every night. You don't make your bed once in a month also. You will have to search for your bed in the rooms, my God. So many books of all kinds. So every night when you will have to sleep, you are pushing the books on that side and then making a place for yourself. And some of you don't even bother doing that. Usi pe so jao. And from all parts of the body, the knowledge is actually going inside. It's as if I'm talking about your own life. है ना? बरसों से नहाए भी नहीं. This is a very beautiful picture, very popular one, though it doesn't define which individual is what. Must have started somewhere there, where the feet are not really upright, bent feet, very long limbs, as if the limbs are in a standing posture touching the feet. Then man was slowly starting to stand up. So it's like when you are thrown down from the trees. That's how the story goes. There's so much of population on the trees. Some of the weaker fellows were thrown onto the ground. And when you were on the ground, you had to mend for yourself, your safety, your food. So you were slowly trying to stand. So in the process of standing, every other change occurred from top to bottom. Many people second the idea that change must have started in the feet. And then the final, though things were happening simultaneously, but massive changes initially were in the lower side of the body and then the upper side. So we see that once genus Homo appears, a lot of change is actually located here rather than any other part of the body. So by the time you come here, you see that that fellow is holding some tool there. Maybe a Homo habilis, the mention of him is not there in your syllabus. It is considered to be the first one who must have used the tools. And then the other fellows. We'll see much more beautiful pictures as the class progresses. So basically, it's a combination of inquiries. That is biological and cultural. It's a combination of inquiries. Don't look at the time. We are way behind. No. This was the picture we were trying to draw in the previous class, Dryopithecus. Then I did not mention in that class about Rama, Australo, Erectus, Neanderthal, and then you have Sapiens. These are the other three ape fellows. Here I have my own love called Gibbon, the smallest of the apes, also called bonobo. That was the name I was asking you in the previous class. Anthropologists are trying to find out at what point of time this must have decided to part off from the humans. You can look back to your script to see those pictures. यहाँ पर? Huh? This is Homo sapiens sapiens. Generally we call modern man. Homo sapiens itself, it's a human, but within human, the most modern fellow. meaning that post times of formation of races. So in your syllabus, when it is mentioned as early Homo sapiens, when we say early Homo sapiens, these are those three individuals, Grimaldi, etc. And then Homo sapiens sapiens is a contemporary fellow. So our first inquiry, more inquisitively, is this one. The second is whether Astrolo is our ancestor. If at all he is an ancestor, which among those fellows is our ancestor? Whether both of were coexisting, or is it that Neanderthal was our ancestor between Erectus and Homo sapiens? Those are the three massive questions. One was about departing of chimpanzee from us. Second, which Astrolo was our immediate ancestor? Third one, whether we share an ancestral line emerging from Neanderthal, or Neanderthal was our parallel cousin. That's how. So in this process, most of our discussion when it comes to cultural evolution of man is there. We will be starting from Homo erectus when it comes to culture. I wanted you to see this once again, because suddenly if I say that so and so time period belongs to Homo erectus, you would scratch your head. Period is the shortest of the time, less than hundreds of millions of years. So as you could see there, Holocene, Pleistocene, tens of years, tens of millions of years. So our inquiry is at that point. Can I go, sir? I thought you have already taken that at that time. When was the first time you had in your childhood used scissors or knife? If you could recall, how many years you were?
4 years.
My God, so you grew up so quickly to use a scissors and knife at 4 years. Was it to cut your own selves, or? Basically, that is the time when you try to cross-check what mother says, whether it is right or not. When you use the scissors, it would hurt you, so you would cut and see whether it is really hurting you. Can I go, sir? So our inquiry here is basically to see how the tool usage had started by man. But before all this, any parallel class there? Tuition? I have brought something very interesting to you today. This is evolution of weapons. Dini URL adigi malli avanni oddu.
కత్తులతో కాదురా, కంటి చూపుతో చంపేస్తా.
బాలకృష్ణ గారిని చూస్తే కళ్ళలో నీళ్ళు వచ్చినాయి. I can't stop tears when I see Mr. Balakrishna, my very matinee icon. What we are doing in anthropology, archaeological anthropology, is nothing more than that. We are trying to trace the evolution of material usage, tool usage. See how beautifully the whole thing is narrated. We are going to see several other things later. I extensively use Telugu cinema for that. That is the time periods that you must be knowing. So later, it's more or less the same thing, you know. How many years we identify it as particular period or epoch. So I'm bringing you to this time that is very much nearest to us. These are the epochs, those are the cultural ages. So in your syllabus, those names are there, these are not there, except for at one place, Pleistocene. This map, this picture you should remember for the time period's sake. So from 2 million years ago to 105,000 years ago is the lower Paleolithic time. From 105 to 40,000 is the middle Paleolithic. Till 10,000 is the upper Paleolithic, and after that the smaller times. So meaning that between these two times, or rather between 40 and 10,000 years, Homo sapiens appeared with all the major physical and intellectual qualities. So non-Telugus, you watch any Balakrishna movies? I'll give you the catalog so that you can watch him. Use for topics like climate adaptation, defense anthropology. Several other people, they require weapons and tools. He doesn't require. His body itself is a weapon.